Hello, my name is Kristen Santamaria. I'm your creative writing instructor. I thought I'd take a little bit of time to describe the difference between point of view when writing a story. So there's typically three different types of point of view or perspectives that you can choose from when you're creating your creative writing story. So there's first person, there's second person, and then there's third person point of view. Now, depending on the type of point of view that you want to write your story in, it's going to change how the story reads, and it's also going to affect the narration. So, what the narrator knows, and also how you present what the narrator knows in your story. So, for example, I wanted to take a quick look at the three different points of view. I'm going to highlight these in your announcement too, but I thought it might be helpful to go through the sentences with you just so you understand the difference in the three different points of view. Keep in mind also that the narrator, when I'm referring to the narrator, is the person who is telling the story. So it's the person speaking to the reader. So it's important to kind of put some thought into who you want that person to be and what point of view you want that person to be telling the story in. So I'm going to focus on first and third person, and then I'll talk a little bit about second person. The reason I'm doing first and third person at the beginning is because you're probably going to pick one of those two points of view to write your story in. So first person point of view, those are stories where the narrator is actively participating in the action of the story. So I, me, our, we, those are all the types of pronouns that you would use when you're writing in first person. So I walked along the ragged beach trying to find my way back to the boat. So if that sentence were to appear in a story, the narrator is the person walking. So the narrator is the character, the main character in the story. Third person, those are typically stories written that are a little bit more objective, where we get the name of the character, like Susan, or in the sense, her husband Sam. Third person is also wording like he, she, they, and other pronouns to refer back to Susan or Sam. So Susan walked along the ragged beach, trying to find her way back to the boat. She looked to her right to see her husband Sam following her. She tried to count to 10 to avoid the panicked feeling racing through her limbs as she realized they were lost. Now, there's two different ways to do third person point of view. You can do it from the perspective of just one character in the story. This is called limited, which is what this sentence I just read was in. Notice that we're just in Susan's head. So we just know what Susan is experiencing. Or we can do this next sentence, which is called omniscient, where the narrator basically knows everything that's happening in the story, knows the feelings of all the characters, and kind of can express that in the story. Susan walked along the ragged beach. Sam, her husband, could not believe they had forgotten how to get back to the boat. So you see, in that sense, we're in Sam's head, and then we go into Susan's head. Susan tried to count to 10 to avoid the panic feeling racing through her limbs. So we are in both characters' perspectives. I would suggest, for our purposes, it may be easier to try to do the limited than to try to jump around into different characters' perspectives. But ultimately, that's up to you. I would suggest also throughout the course just trying different points of view to see what works best for your story. Second person point of view is not done as regularly as first or third. Second person is you or your. So you walked along the ragged beach trying to find your way back to the boat. The you is referring to the reader, so the audience. So when I said that, it's almost like I'm talking to you. You become an active part of the story. It's usually when the writer wants to put the reader into the situation to give them more perspective on the situation. It's a nice technique. It can become repetitive if it's not done correctly. There are a couple instances where it's been done very well. It just depends on the story and on the situation. But again, I would suggest using first or third for this story. So I am looking forward to reading what you come up with for your flash fiction pieces. Make sure to keep in mind what we've just reviewed in terms of perspective and point of view. So first, second, and third person point of view. Make sure that you maintain a consistent point of view throughout the story. Since this is a flash fiction piece, also keep in mind that it's done in a flash, so don't take on too much with the story. Keep it manageable in terms of character and plot. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your stories.